Today's episode is sponsored by the American Homebrewers Association. Become a part of the U.S.'s largest community of homebrewers for just $48 a year by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA. What exactly do you get with your AHA membership? How about a year-long subscription to Zymergy Magazine, the world's longest-running homebrew magazine? Exclusive deals and discounts at over 2,000 breweries, bars, and bottle shops across America. Discounts on Brewers publication books and merchandise. Access to a huge library of previous HomebrewCon seminars and talks. And early access to purchasing tickets to each year's Great American Beer Festival and Savor. Sign up now by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA and get a year's membership for just $48. And if you sign up now, you'll get a free gift. What's that gift? I'm not saying. You need to go see for yourself. It's pretty great. Support United We Drink, support homebrewing, and support the American Homebrewers Association at unitedwedrink.com/AHA. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a podcast that doesn't have $500 to pay for dirt on a brewery. Welcome to United We Drink right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mikey Revich, and I'm recording this show in my final days of bachelorhood. Is that a word? I don't care. And I'm joined by my two co-hosts. First up is a man who makes wearing a mask look pretty damn sexy. Here's Phil Palmisano.
I appreciate that. On behalf of all of us that try to be Bane on a daily basis, thank you. Could you imagine what we could actually do with $500 as a podcast? Just throwing that out there hypothetically.
I could think of many things. Some of them legal, some of them not. But
all you got to do is one time, just one quick flip. Buy a brick, flip it, you're good to go.
I don't feel that I need to give that to some listener who might make up something about a brewery in order to get a scoop.
I was actually talking about a brick of Cascade hops.
Ah, good bricks.
So there you go.
Next up is someone who has recently joined, or at least I think recently joined, Team Spreets. It's Joel Codner.
My membership is pending. I've put in an application. I'm interested, but I don't know. I'm still on Team Seltzer, so I feel like I'm halfway there.
Has Kevin not processed that application yet? I know he's not very good with the interwebs and technology.
Yeah, he's busy doing shit. I don't know.
Joel's still trying to work on getting a Truly sponsorship for the show.
Yeah, fucking, and Phil didn't warn us, but Vizzy is buy one, get one free this week, starting today at Publix.
That's not true. I gave you a warning like 3 weeks ago on that.
You guys know I don't remember anything you say. I need reminders.
Back through our Slack channel.
Yeah, I still bought 2 Trulies, lemonade and the berry pack. No one's got the citrus pack. Where did that go?
Phil, do you know where that go?
I have no clue, actually.
So I think it's safe to assume that Joel's drinking Truly lemonade right now.
I have 2 strawberry lemonades in front of me. One I've already finished while we were waiting on some technical difficulties, plus my obligatory standard show bottle of airplane size Malort.
Phil, what are you consuming?
I am celebrating National IPA Day, #IPA Day, with a Benwood Hazy Double IPA from Cigar City. And then to keep things true, a no mames on the back end from Tripping Animals Mexican style lager.
Nice.
So I have something very special. Friend of the
For
show.
the last podcast of you being a bachelor.
This that I'm about to show you is going to probably make at least one of you jealous. Friend of the show and former intern of the show, Randy, came by the brewery today and dropped me off a gift for my wedding. And it is something that I have talked about on this show a number of times, and it is Nick Offerman Lagavulin 11
Nice.
Very nice.
Scotch. So I am cracking this open. I have said on the show before how Randy gave me a bottle of Lagavulin 16 at one point as a gift, and I'm almost out of that. So he heard that and decided, hey, I know of a place where they got the Offerman edition Lagavulin, so that will be his wedding gift. So thank you, Randy, for this. And I'm just opened it and just sipping it for the first time.
I feel like you should be pairing that with a massive plate of bacon.
Probably. Any type
Maybe
of pork
drinking
product.
in a wood shop.
It's definitely smoky, peaty. Like I actually think 16 is peatier than this. This is like very, in my opinion, approachable for an Islay. I'll bring it to the wedding. You guys can have some too.
Well, it looks like I'm staying a little bit longer. Thanks, Mike.
You can
Thank-
stay
actually,
over
thank
too.
you,
We have
Randy.
5 bedrooms. So we decided with the whole wedding thing, we normally record on weekends. We're not going to do it on my wedding weekend. So we're recording about a whole week early than we would release this. We tried to get a guest on the show. A number of them fell through. So Phil came up with the idea to talk about some good memories in our beer journeys. I felt like we talked a little bit about some of this stuff before, but I think that we can be different enough from talking about like where we started off in the industry or bad decisions that we made in this industry. That was an episode, right? That wasn't just
Yes,
hanging
I think
around
so.
drinking. So let's talk about some good memories in this beer industry. And I think, have we ever discussed to the folks out there how we all met through beer?
I don't think so. And this whole topic came about because obviously you're getting married this weekend. The last episode you actually got you the listener got a sneak peek into the social distancing bachelor party, as my wife would like to call it. And but you only got such a small portion of the conversation that we had, and we actually, the three of us and our good friend Kevin, had amazing conversation throughout the day, and we constantly hit on different things from years ago that I haven't thought about. And I think that regardless of where you live or how long you've been involved in craft beer, you can probably relate to the exact same way that the three of us met, became very close friends, and got into this. And we've talked about how we got into the industry, but some of the really good memories that we've had, and as we discussed, it's fitting that the three of us are sitting on a podcast together because we've experienced some really good things together as a team. Even before we were a team, we were just friends.
Yeah, I mean, one time I remember the three of us hanging out at the Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival, and us like purposefully, this had to be like 2011 or something like that, going and being like, we got to go stand in line for Cigar City. And they had, I think it was the 69 double cream ale and Hunapoo, if I recall right.
Yeah.
And Wayne was there, I believe, pouring that day. Phil, maybe you remember. You weren't working for them.
No,
yet
I want to say it was 2010 was the year, because I have a picture of the infamous drinking glove, and myself and Joel. And the drinking glove is its own individual person. I want to say it was 2010. I do remember them having batch 69 double cream ale. They did have Hunapoo, and I want to say it was Tim Ogden and possibly Wayne serving on that giant white hand-painted jockey box that they used to have. That was a massive pain in the butt to set up. Insider sort of tip on that one.
And what my memory of Hunapoo is not only, trying something like that for the first time, and I think it was something that nobody had ever really experienced before, but the other aspect of it was everyone was like, I cannot rinse this out of my taster cup. Like, everybody was looking for water. Like, look at how it's coated my goddamn cup.
Yeah, I remember it was definitely 2010, because I remember thinking that it was actually a pretty regular beer to come about. We were still relatively early into the craft, like really into that craft geekdom. Cigar City was brand new, and I want to say it was, Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival is in January, and Hunapoo is always released in March, and I want to say it was like 2 months later, myself and friend of all three of us, John Cook, ended up making the first trip over to the very first Hunapoo Day, where they actually released the bottles, and there were less than probably 700 people hanging out that day. And you think about what that festival was turned into in quite a short amount of time, and the landscape of just every industry in general. And you go exponentially higher attendance wise. Unfortunately, this year attendance was lower because the event had to be canceled due to COVID. But it's crazy to see how that has grown. But yes, I do remember that. And they also had my favorite beer of the day on draft that year was oatmeal raisin cookie. And I remember just freaking out. And Mike, you and I used to take trips over to Fort Myers and Naples to grab at Total Wine. We used to grab 6-packs of Highlight glass. Yeah. Like, it's insane. And today I swung by a grocery store and picked up a 12-pack cans of Highlight. Like, where we've come in such a short amount of time. But Cigar City really did that. That Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival was very memorable for a lot of reasons. One of which, we had a great group. There were probably about 10 of us, 12 of us walking around that year.
Yeah.
And we were all bloggers at that point in time. And Joel, you've always been into the Twitter thing, so you've always twatted.
Well, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be here right now. I mean, I remember wanting to get into beer, and I just threw a little something out there, and somehow friend of the show, Ed Roberts, found me and guided me toward my first mixed 6-pack. So, and that's kind of something I miss. That's a good memory. Just going to the store, we had basically, no breweries here. A couple of brew pubs. Tequesta was all the way up in Tequesta. So, at least not easy for me to get to. They weren't really distributing much. And every trip to Total Wine was an adventure. Like, I would try to squeeze one in whenever I could, whether it was on the way home from work or, when I was supposed to be somewhere else. And I'd always try to sneak in there. And not only there, but like other liquor stores that were starting to bring on craft beer and find all these new things. And like, I think I've mentioned this before, like, we talked about like how, holy shit, like Flying Dog is distributing here now. And I remember grabbing a mix 6 of like the 6 beers they launched with, it was it was fun to try new things and not necessarily like we're documenting them by maybe putting them on Instagram or Facebook or wherever we're posting, but it wasn't taken so seriously. It wasn't like we had to analyze everything, and I'm sure the ones we did try to analyze we didn't know shit about. I mean, I remember getting a gusher for the first time, and I was like, "The fuck is this?" Like, I didn't know what caused it. Now I know like 20 things that could contribute to that. So, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I remember catching shit from, I believe it was Ed Roberts and some other people because I had put Anchor Porter in a frosted mug. Like I was doing it chili style. I had the fucking thick mug coming out of the freezer. Like, that's what beer novices think you're supposed to do.
God, I miss Anchor Porter. One of the best porters ever.
Is it still a thing or just not distributed here?
I think it's still a thing, just not distributed here.
I remember, and maybe it was, I remember when Anchor Porter got pulled out of Florida, or at least stopped distributed in Florida, and I want to say it was either there was a night that we, and Mike, I think you went with me. It was a cask release. Remember those things? Casks? Real ale? Like, wow. My brain just exploded. The pub down in Pembroke Pines actually had a true engine.
Yeah.
And they did a Brewdog release. It was the first time Brewdog ever sent beer down to South Florida. Mike, you were there, right?
I was not. I've only been to...
So that was one that Ed brought me out to. And I ended up meeting Tony Kirkish at that, and
we're throwing out names like people know who we're talking about.
Well, yeah, you throw out. Sorry in advance. But I remember, I think it was the weekend after, he brought a 6-pack over to the house, and he was like, "Have you had this?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I've had it before." And he said, "They're not distributing it in the state of Florida anymore." And he was really upset. And we drank a 6-pack together. And I was like, damn, this is a really good beer. I definitely miss that to this day.
I've only been to the pub that you're talking about one time before. And strangely enough, I went there after going to a meet and greet with Garrett Oliver at the Total Wine out in Pembroke Pines. Garrett Oliver went over there after there too, and friend of the show Brian Torres from Funky Buddha and I sat and talked with Garrett Oliver for like 45 minutes just about beer, and it was ridiculous how like I can't even remember what year that was, but it had to be like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And like I am sitting here enjoying a beer with a gentleman who is a big deal in the beer world, and like he's talking to us, like giving us conversation, like not just like going, "Oh, what's your question? All right, moving on." I mean, it was an insane thing to think about today. Like I know that he probably would have a ton of people around trying to ask him questions at this point in time. And it's just crazy to think that I was able to sit there and have a conversation with him for such a long time. And just a segue from talking to Garrett Oliver, like at that point, like he became like a friend on Facebook, like added him as a friend before there was like pages and stuff like that. And it was just like, oh yeah, big deal, whatever. Like, he doesn't know who all these people are. When I started working for my first brewery, I posted something about it, and he replied on my status update. Like Garrett Oliver was like, welcome to this industry, welcome to this world. Your life has changed pretty much forever. Like,
I remember that.
I was like, I can't believe that this guy just responded to me like that. It was insane.
Yeah, and speaking about Brooklyn, and I know you were with me on this one, Can you remember back in the day when we used to, this was before beer was real big in South Florida, and just north of us, or just north about where we live now, about an hour and 45 minutes, opens up a different territory for a different distributor. And J.J. Taylor opens up their territory in the Treasure Coast. And Mike and I used to pile into his old Nissan pickup truck on both of our days off. We would align. It was
Fridays.
a Nissan pickup truck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We would align our days off and either jump in my car or his car, and we would drive an hour 15.
It was an hour from where I lived.
From where you were. So about an hour and 30 from hour and 15 from where I was. And literally drive up there and just to go to Vine and Barley, Port St. Lucie, and see an amazing family-owned run bar that had killer draft beer, honestly some of the best beer selection in the state of Florida, and just the nicest people. And I'm still friends with Mark to this day, and they used to carry some of the best Brooklyn selections. I remember one day we took off and we drove up for the chocolate chip cookie Blast release.
Blast was an IPA. The cookie jar porter.
Porter. That's what it was.
One. We also
and
went
they
up
were
for,
out when we got there.
Were they?
They were.
I don't remember that.
Or maybe they weren't out, but we couldn't get our growlers filled because we used to do growlers back in the day too.
Because we got Dark Matter growlers there, which was a bourbon barrel aged, like dark strong or something like that. I mean,
yep.
I can look that up.
I think we had Pecans of Wrath there from Dogfish Head. Whole bunch of stuff. That I so many good memories coming from Vine and Barley, and the Treasure Coast beer scene. Really, really awesome times.
Dark Matter was a brown ale aged in bourbon barrels.
Team Brown Ale.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I used to, even when you weren't with me, I'll almost, because every month I had to work 10 days in a row, including a weekend. And to make up for that, I got the following, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off a 4-day weekend following having to do that. So every one of those Fridays, for the most part, I went up to the Total Wine in Jensen Beach, because there was always a bunch of different stuff there than what I could get down in Boynton Beach. Head over to Vine and Barley when they opened around, I think it was like 2 that they opened. Have a beer or two, talk with Mark because he was almost always bartending there on Fridays. Get a growler to go and head back home and try to be home by, like, miss the rush hour. And like that was some fun times. And yeah, going up to Vine and Barley in Port St. Lucie, still there. Mark now has a Vine and Barley in downtown Stuart, Florida, which is a really awesome spot as well. And I implore anyone who is along the Treasure Coast, South Florida, Central Florida, if you're going through that area, make it a point to stop and go to Vine and Barley. Not sponsoring the show, not anything like that, but I definitely love that place.
I shamefully really have still not been there.
What? Really? The three of us really need to make a trip. That is, in my opinion, one of the staple. There's only a handful of staple craft beer bars within the state of Florida, and they truly are one of them, specifically in that the South Florida, if you want to consider Port St. Lucie, downtown.
It's borderline
Stuart,
South and Central.
Yeah.
Maybe we could record from there.
Yeah.
I could ask. I don't see why not. I look good with a mask on, so I can do anything with a mask on. So, and that's not even me saying I look good with a mask on. That's Mike. So,
Yeah, it
but
matched
yeah,
your shirt.
That was awesome.
You were
Honestly,
looking
that was sort of our red light for the longest time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And red light was that bar in Orlando for such a long time. It still is, really.
That's where I had my first Cigar City beers.
Yeah. Did you go to the original location, Joel?
Yeah, it was 2010. I was pretty well into beer by then, and Ed Roberts and I happened to be vacationing with our families at the same time there. So he came by the hotel, and I remember my in-law family kind of mocking us because Ed Roberts came over. Met us at the hotel I was staying with. My in-laws had like this Disney timeshare, and my sister-in-law and her family were there as well, and they were all like playing cards and stuff. Ed comes to kind of pick me up for our date and mentioned something about one of the beers being hoppy, and my in-laws had already had quite a few glasses of wine at that point, so they started making jokes about like rabbits and hopping, and it was pretty lame, but they were enjoying themselves. And we went over to we were having a hell of a time finding it, but we got there. We had a bomber. Those were like the 750s of
Like
a humidor
Belita.
IPA, which is now Spanish cedar High in 12-ounce cans.
Yep.
You're welcome, Phil. And we also had what was it? There was another one of their beers. I just can't think.
Improvisation, Belita.
No, I didn't have
Winter Warmer, Big Sound.
No, I didn't have Belita until I think it was like Phil's ex-wife's birthday party one night, and I stopped at BX Beer Depot to grab something on the way.
I had a sour bottle of Belita.
Those were really good, actually.
Yeah, it was.
And that, Mike, that was the Orlando trip where I had a sour 12-ounce bottle of Maduro, and then I brought you one, and it was perfectly fine. I was like, Mike's into sours. He may enjoy this. It's like, yeah, it's a brown ale.
I'm pretty sure Joey did a good job of documenting all of that stuff on the blog, but
yeah.
For those of you
they were
that don't
very
know,
open about it.
What was that?
They were very open about it, like transparency. Like I remember I read about the Belita infection like the day I got back from Nightly Spirits in Orlando and had a bottle of Belita, and I'm like, oh. And it talked about how like we've tested it, like it actually is quite pleasant, but it's not what we intended for it to be. You can bring it back to the brewery and get a full refund. I'm like, I can't go over to Tampa, so I held on to it for a little bit. We opened it one time and it was like, oh wow, this is a pretty tasty like dark sour beer.
Yeah,
even though it was unintended.
If I remember correctly, the Maduro situation was hop particulate got stuck in one of the filler heads of the 4-head or 6-head inline Maheen for the 12-ounce bottles. Yeah, how about that? Like, man, I remember, and here's a throwback. My very first day at Cigar City, they send me in and they say, all right, we're doing the largest batch that we have ever done of High Lie ever. And we're bottling all of it. And I want to say it was a 20-barrel batch of High Lie. Or maybe it was a 60-barrel batch. It was probably a 60-barrel batch. And so I was like, oh, yeah, awesome. And I thought that was so much beer. And I worked had to be 8 a.m., 7 a.m., till about 4 or 5 p.m., just constantly packing on, packing off, packing on, packing off. Did load on empties, did everything except for what Doug Dozark, now of Cycle Brewing, was doing, which was basically QA, QC on fill levels on the 2 inline 6-heads. And I remember going home to my parents' house, which both of you guys have been at, courtesy of Cigar
Lovely
City.
Place.
And and Hunapu Day. And my dad goes, "You look beat." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was the hardest day of work I've ever done." The level of respect that I have for everyone that works behind the brew house and on packaging, literally day one changed. I never understood how much labor intensive this industry was until I physically had to do it. And then I show up on the second day and they're like, by the way, you're right back in it. And third day I got to brew Guava Grove with Tim Ogden, which was amazing. To be able to brew a beer with Tim Ogden was it honestly still is probably one of my highlights in this profession.
I am so glad you brought up that beer because I was just going to ask you about it. When we were reminiscing about the old 750s a few minutes back, 3 particularly came to mind. Seabass, Vuja Day, which I love not only because it was great, but it's maybe intentionally or unintentionally a George Carlin reference, and Guava Grove. And I wanted to ask, whatever, like, is it still a thing? Is it anywhere? Like, I just feel like I haven't seen it in forever. But I also don't bottle shop as much anymore.
Yeah, there was quite some time ago we were doing limited runs, brewery only, of Guava Grove. So you could swing by the tasting room and pick it up. The beer is definitely different from what it was back in 2010, 2011. And those early batches of Guava Grove were really, really dry, and they were gorgeous in my opinion. I really like the new stuff. There's more fruit-forward flavors to it. That seems to be what the industry sort of wants, or the patrons really want. But yeah, Guava Grove, that was, out of all the monochrome labels of Cigar City, that was probably one of my favorites.
And what's crazy is, like, for as much as I rag on experimental shit these days, like, because it feels very uninspired sometimes, and like people just wandering the grocery. Like, I've seen multiple beers in the past week that are just legit kettle sours with cotton candy mix. I mean, I just, I'm sure it's fine, and I'm sure, like, look, I love cotton candy. I mean, look at me. But, it just feels very uninspired to take, because it's a carton of sugar. It is a carton of sugar and food coloring that basically goes in like a fucking giant hairdryer and makes string. It's not like it's this nuanced ingredient. It's just a box of shit. So, at the same time, like, I feel very grateful to Cigar City for, at least in my kind of up and coming in the beer world, to kind of lead the way and show us what can really be done with all of these ingredients, especially local ones. I mean, I probably hadn't tried some of these flavors like guava for as long as I've been in Florida until I had beers like that. So to be locally inspired and experimental, but also such high quality and tremendous flavor and aroma, like I just feel so grateful that we had that to go by, because I feel like maybe some other places didn't have that same experience.
I as you were talking about Guava Grove, I remember, like, within the last couple weeks, seeing a post about something related to Grove, and I just looked it up, and there is Petite Pineapple Grove on tap at the tasting room right now, which is a 4.5% pineapple sour ale. That I guess there is a Petite Grove series, according to this. There's just different types of fruits in a more sessionable sour. So, like, the Grove name seems to live on, but with, I guess, a more sour ale approach than just the dry saison that we recall from the original Guava Grove days. Because I remember Guava Grove Lactobacillus as a release at one point that turned it into a sour. And I guess they kind of stuck with that as the direction. Also, this draft list is fucking stupid, and it's making me really mad right now.
Fucking cooler cam, dude. Like, I feel like I gotta go get cans and shit.
Like, there's just so much stuff on here that I just want to try that I've never even heard of, and I'm like,
I was at the mothership last week and was sitting there, and honestly, I was baffled by the draft list, and I ended up just going with, they had a German-style lager and a...
Sorry for our appearance?
What was that?
Sorry for our appearance?
No, it was, I can't remember the name. It was great.
Bernstein?
Huh?
Bernstein?
I did have a Bernstein. It was good.
There's 4 lagers on. Like, this is
I
fucking
had-
awesome.
So I had Paloma Goes for the first time. Amazing beer. It's just out of this world. Amazing beer.
Is that
And
named
then,
for the brewer?
What was that?
Is that named for the brewer?
No, it's named after the cocktail.
Okay.
So,
There's a brewer named Paloma?
yes, we do have a brewer by the name of Paloma.
I didn't know that.
It's Betty's Brew. I feel
I
like an
don't-
idiot because when I met her at the fucking Brewers Ball in March for the first time, I think I might have called her that. But, like, I might also call you Mike Loves Beer if I'm meeting you for the first time. So I think it's okay to go
How
by
many people
usernames.
call you Brew Cocky
God damn it, I was just going to say...
Brew cake.
or Brew Cake? But yeah, I did. So I had like 2 lagers because I was intimidated by the draft list, and I was actually holding a meeting, and then I had a Paloma Goes, which was a killer beer. Really looking forward to that coming out next year, so that I can drink more of it.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that this year, but I haven't seen it around. But if it's coming out again next year, I am stoked for that opportunity. But like, I'm looking at this, the Tampa Lager, Sorry for Our Appearance, Defeated Statesman.
I had that one. That was awesome. It was very, very good.
Bernstein, like 4 lagers right there, like dope. And like you got Guayabera, you got Invasion, you have another pale ale, Please Scream Inside Your Heart. I love that name. I don't know what it's a reference to, but I just think that that's an awesome name. And then you have the beers from Hanapu Day, like the specialty like variations on Hanapu on tap. Black is Beautiful, like awesome for Cigar City being a part of that. Like 4 barrel-aged beers, like Jesus Christ. It's been way too
it's a
long
good
since
draft
I've gone
list.
to Cigar
It's,
City.
You know, and then on top of that, the food is actually really solid for the tasting room as well. But as we move away from Cigar City, because I don't want the whole podcast to be about Cigar City, even though they played such a big part. And if
They
you're
really
not from
did.
Florida and you're not in craft beer, then maybe you don't comprehend how large that brewery was for us as a state, because they really did help a lot.
Oh, they absolutely did.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a local brewery for you if you live in Texas or Massachusetts or Kansas or Missouri that speaks to you the same way that Cigar City speaks to the 3 of us. Just like there's beer bars like Vine and Barley. Abraxas was one that we used to go to down in Miami Beach. Coffee District and Delray Beach. We mentioned BX Beer Depot, which was a home brew shop and did bottle shop stuff.
Brother Tucker's in Pompano.
Brother Tucker's. Oh, my God. We talked about that last week, and I think that concept would fly at this point in time. An all Belgian-based beer bar with Belgian food. It was amazing.
Yeah.
We had these honey holes in South Florida specifically that we were all able to sort of take advantage of and frequent as friends and made friends along the way at the same time. Joel, being on Twitter, you had to have it's sort of a different, Mike and I have always been on Twitter, and Mike's probably more active than I ever was. But Mike and I got into this industry as bloggers. When you got into this industry on the Twitter side, did that open the door to you on a more national level with craft beer people?
I don't really know what you mean by open the door. I think I've just really made some awesome connections through, over the past. Yeah, I mean, getting to interact with some amazing people over the past decade or so. has just really been awesome. I think it really kind of broadened my horizons in a way that I don't think would be possible if I were just here among our community. Not to say that I couldn't do the same here without the connection to the outside, but you get to know how different some of the cultures are in different places, the different perspectives people have. Just following certain people, you can tell how different beer cultures in different regions approach their brewing and their styles. And this is the conversation I've been having with Mike for a while now, how I'm kind of thinking about relocating possibly at some point, and how there are other places that appeal to me culturally, and how I look at certain breweries and feel like they may not be able to get away with what they're doing in a place like this. Not to say that any is better or worse, but you look at some breweries who they drop their can list availability and they're all lagers, whereas maybe here it's a little more trend forward with a lot of sours, stouts, and IPAs. So, but yeah, I think it's really been helpful in like I've gotten so many of what I perceive as good values towards beer from people I've never even met. The way I look at certain things, because there were certain people that I worked for that were good to me, but not necessarily good to the public. But I don't really know how to explain that without getting into too much detail. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. But, to then go online and talk a little shit and then get corrected by someone at Firestone Walker and go, oh, yeah, that probably is the best way to approach this and that kind of thing. So, and I've gotten to travel, meet so many amazing people. And I mean, my trip to Chicago last year was amazing, and those were all people I only knew online, and they were like, oh, you got to come, oh, someone else from Twitter is here, like, come say hi. So, and I love all those people. Like, I think initially it got me to meeting all of you guys here, and now I've met so many amazing people across the country, and hopefully many more to come.
Yeah, I mean, I Twitter is what got Joel and I together as friends. Phil and I, I used Twitter as a marketing technique to get people to my blog back in the day. Phil was commenting on my blog and was like, "Hey, this is my blog," and we were like, "Hey, I enjoy your blog. You should check out my blog." And I check out his blog, and it's like, oh, sweet. And we were just commenting on each other's posts. It sounds like some archaic thing at this point now. It's like, oh, you didn't text, you didn't DM, this was what we did back then. And then we started, I met Phil at a Jupiter, first time in person at a Jupiter Craft Brewers Festival. I think I met Joel at a Boca Beer Lovers meetup at Funky Buddha Lounge back when they were still
Boca
just
Beer
a
Lovers.
little
Boca
lounge.
Beer Lovers.
Yeah,
amazing.
Boca Beer Lovers. Shout out to Ed Hussey and Laura Hussey, the friends of ours who I believe I met through Boca Beer Lovers as well.
Was that guy Jonathan running the group at the time?
Yeah, back then.
Oh boy. Did you ever get to stroll through Total Wine with him?
No.
Oh boy.
That guy's told so many he was every year when Celebration comes out, you'll hear people talk about how there's always those people who say, oh, Celebration used to be so good when it had coriander in it. Jonathan was one of those people who was like, they used to put coriander in it, and every year Sierra Nevada's like, we've never put coriander in Celebration. It's always been a fresh hop beer, like the newest hops for that season. I love that he is one of those people.
He was telling me to buy the last of the Thomas Hardy Ale as if he were a time traveler telling me to invest in Bitcoin.
I mean, I did buy a 1982 Thomas Hardy for quite some money that is
Wow.
just sitting for my
Still?
40th birthday. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm sitting on one.
For your 50th?
40th.
40th. Okay.
40th.
Is that your birth year?
1982, yeah.
Wow.
It's funny, before you showed up for the bachelor party weekend, I noticed that Kevin had a number of Thomas Hardys in one of his cabinets, and I was like, "Oh, are those all the 2008s before they stopped making it?" I think they make it again now, but there was
it's on the shelf fresh this year.
But they stopped making it. That was the final year. He's like, "Yeah, I bought a bunch of these. I know they're probably terrible." He's like, I once sat with a number of people and had a 50-year-old bottle of this, and we were all trying to convince ourselves that it's not as bad as it really is. He's like, it was fucking awful. We just tried to justify how much it cost.
I'm sure I'll do the same for my 40th birthday.
Hey, if I can join in, I would love it, because that's also my birth year. But it was like when we did the 12 beers of Christmas. Some of those way past their prime, and the oldest one of those was 12 years old.
Yep, absolutely. I can't say, Joel, Twitter. So I wasn't really big into Twitter, and Mike, I actually found you off of a Google search because I was trying to find craft beer in South Florida, and it pulled up with this other beer blog, and it was mikelovesbeer.com, and I started reading the blog on a daily basis. We were doing similar things. I took a different spin than you took, so it wasn't like I was stealing from you or you were stealing from me. Honestly, we were just such a small community at that point in time that we ended up meeting a ton of people together and eventually started this podcast together, and became very good friends. Joel, Twitter did introduce me to you, but it also introduced me to someone that is near and dear to my heart, and honestly is probably one of my top 5 beer stories ever, which was sharing a beer with Jeremy Danner on the roof of Boulevard Brewing Company on a trip to Kansas. That was hands down one of the best
Kansas
things.
City, Missouri.
Kansas City. I was physically in Kansas. We drove
KCK,
over to Kansas City
KC
for that. Sorry. Don't
Thank you,
compare me
Rand
to anybody
McNally.
else that says that. I physically, we went to Kansas to see a basketball game. Joel set us up with this guy Jeremy. He's a really good guy, and on the roof of Boulevard. At that point in time, we had a beer together, and we said, "Hey, we should really talk about doing a collaboration beer together." I was working for Cigar City. He was working for Boulevard. I came back, introduced Wayne to Steven, and the rest is history. It turned into a collaboration, but I drank way too much Tank 7 on the roof of Boulevard overlooking Kansas City. And, honestly, Jeremy's one of the best guys that I've ever met in this industry outside of the two of you. And honestly, it is a top 5 for me, and in 11 years.
I don't remember being the one to set that up. I feel like you guys might have. That was like a Blake thing. I don't know. Like I feel like there was some other connection there that I don't think I was involved in that, honestly. But
I thought you were, or at least you introduced
look, I'll take
us
the credit.
to him before we went out there. I don't know. One way or the other, I'm giving you responsibility for that. I've always given you responsibility for that, or credit. So one or the other.
You got to drink a beer that was at that time employee only in the Hibiscus Goza that is now, I think, a seasonal beer that they make.
Yep. We got that. They were so generous when we did the brewery tour. It was amazing. And 80 Acre at that point in time, I couldn't get my
Oh, yeah,
hands
the
on
Hoppy
Gumball
Wheat.
Head
Yeah.
on a regular basis, and 80 Acre was just killer. But Boulevard was really one of the first beers that got me into craft beer, so it was amazing for me to go back to this area. I'm using air quotes, that I had craft beer very early on in my craft beer journey, and have a beer on the roof of the brewery overlooking the city where the beer was made with someone from the brewery. And it really opened my eyes to how generous and hospitable this industry can be and is, even to this day.
Yeah, when you say generous and hospitable, I mean, Boulevard immediately comes to mind for me because he was cool enough to invite me at my first brewery to Boulevardia 3 years ago. And it was one of the best weekends of my life. I had met him before once at GABF very briefly, probably a couple of years prior, and he had never tried a drop of my beer. At least I don't think he did. He might have at that festival, but I remember, getting invited, pleading with my boss to let us go. Like, we had to ship some beer and, I get some airline tickets, but I thought it would be really cool to be a part of it. And I was totally honored to be involved. And, we go out there with our taproom manager at the time, and it was just such an amazing weekend. Everyone was so polite and hospitable and generous. And, you're working the festival, pouring beer, and there are people going, "Thank you for being here." And you're like, "Oh, do you work here?" And they're like, "No, they're just festival attendees thanking the brewers because they're that cool of a people." And, there was like George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic on stage and this giant fucking Ferris wheel, and just what an amazing time. I was sitting across from John Laffler from Off Color Brewing, who thankfully I got to meet in Chicago last year, but 3 years ago I'm across from him, and like we follow each other, we've interacted, and I'm just terrified to go say hello, and I fucking blew the opportunity. But I did meet some amazing people there. Just such an incredible time, and got to meet Powell's, and and like I was thinking about it today because we were trying to work out a way to get him on, and I was thinking to myself about how he invited me and the brewery I was representing, and nobody there had tried our stuff. So I thought to myself, like, he had to have like gone to bat for us and said, "Hey, let's invite these people." It's not just like, I'm sure he didn't have carte blanche to just invite whoever. So to be one of the chosen few at the moment, that I'm just eternally grateful for that kind of thing. And shamefully, I was not entirely proud of the beer we brought. It just was not our best effort. And I saw former brewmaster of, I think it was Stone. His name escapes me at the moment. I guess he was retiring that weekend, and people were making a big deal out of it.
Mitch Steele?
No, it was somebody else. And I watched him take a sample of our beer and like walk 1 or 2 tents away. And sometimes I'll eyeball people and like see what their facial reaction is. And I mean, I might as well have poured him paracetic acid. Like, he was like, like his tongue came out and he fucking dumped it, and I was just devastated. But hey, it fucking happens. But it was truly one of the best times I've ever had.
Yeah, I was jealous that you or that I wasn't to accompany you.
You got to go to Spain.
I did get to go to Spain. That was that. Yeah, to think back on good times, not just for beer, but like in general, that was a great experience. I mean, to be hosted by Edge Brewing, who are like expats for like all intents and purposes of the U.S., and who opened up a brewery in Barcelona, and got to go over there and brew a collaboration with them. Met people from their craft beer community. They hosted an event there, just like I didn't even know that this was happening. We just thought we were going and hanging out and drinking at the brewery, and there were local beer fans and bloggers and podcasters like in the Barcelona beer community coming out and talking to us. They're like, "You're an American brewery," like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And the first day that I was there, I was hanging out with Wayne from Cigar City because he had just brewed a collaboration with Edge. I got to go to meet the people from Fort Brewing. I got to hang out at, still to this day, one of the best experiences of my life, going to Ales Aguilon out in St. Joan Mediona, just outside of Barcelona. Carlos, the owner of that brewery, he doesn't have a tasting room. He invited us to come to his brewery, which is also his house, on the top of a hill overlooking this village with vineyards running down the hill. This small little system that he brews like American style beers, but then in the basement of his house, he has barrels of sour beer that he has the yeast strain of Cantillon. Incredible. He was just pulling nails from barrels. It was like, here, try this. Here, try this. Doesn't speak a lick of English, but was just like, here you go. Help yourself. His wife made us dinner. Like, I was just blown away by the hospitality. He hosts Zwanza Day in Spain at his house brewery every year. Like, it was incredible. I don't think that I'll ever experience anything quite like that because there isn't anything like that in America here. I mean, going to Jester King is amazing from stateside because of being a true farmhouse brewery over here. But I mean, Ales Aguilons is just something I don't think I'll ever experience again. You guys fall asleep?
No, honestly, I think it's an awesome place to sort of end the podcast because the hospitality and listen, COVID has taken this thing in a complete 180. Everything's crazy. Everything's unsure.
We almost made it through an entire episode without talking about COVID.
But the reality of the situation is that COVID is still going on, and it has impacted our industry pretty greatly. But the foundation of our industry is really, really solid, and we all talked about it, and we all talked about how locally, nationally, regionally, we've all been impacted by craft beer at this point in time, and moving forward. This is the foundation that we come out and we continue to rebuild on, and this is just a building process. It's a simple blip in the system that we will go through. We will get better. We will continue to grow as an industry. We are a very innovative and forward-thinking industry that will come out of this and in a different way and possibly in a better way if we can continue to build upon this foundation that really spoke to all of us, be it 12, 13 years ago.
The hospitality, the camaraderie, I think it's a thing that drew me in and continues to keep me in, even in the darkest times when I'm thinking to myself, fuck this industry, fuck every person in it who wants to do this, that, and the other that I don't agree with. But every time that I think that, I go on Twitter and I can see people like Libby from Second Shift, John from Off Color, number of other people out there who are doing wonderful, passionate things in beer and being like, all right, I've been talked off of the ledge. I'm back. Thank you, everyone, for getting me back over here. And I'm only speaking for myself, but I think that that's a thing that all of us feel pretty strongly about.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
All right. So after that stroll down memory lane, I think it's time to about wrap things up. So let's do some last calls. Does everyone have a last call?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll get mine out of the way really quick because I don't think mine's all that crazy. Even though I'm getting married, I'll give a thing about my marriage next time, I guess. I just want to plug an awesome show that I was recently told about, also by friend of the show Randy, called Taskmaster. It is a British show. It's a game show of sorts that is hosted by Greg Davis, a English comedian who you might know from The Inbetweeners or Cuckoo on Netflix. It's completely all free on YouTube to watch. He pretty much tells comedians to do things and they have to do it, and he rates them and gives them points and determines winners. I have never laughed so hard at some of these bits, like uncontrollably laughing. I had a great time. I'm not even anywhere close to finishing the series. There's like 4 or 5 seasons, and it is hilarious. I highly recommend it. Like I said, you have no excuse. It's free on YouTube. Taskmaster. Phil?
Awesome. I've been omitting a lot of things on the podcast as of late, and I think it's probably more therapy than it is anything else. So today I'm going to come out and I'm going to say I am a comic book nerd, and I am officially getting back into card gaming, in particular, and my son and I have been doing a ton of Pokemon online as well as in-person sort of card gaming. Very excited for COVID to end so that I can actually do an actual tournament, because I want to see how bad I am in comparison to somebody that's actually been playing this game for quite some time. We did stumble across my plug for the week, though, is not Pokemon. We came across this YouTube channel of this kid opening and ripping packs, and I say kid, and he's only a handful of years younger than me. But it's the Real Breaking Nate. Honestly, this guy has such a positive outlook on life and speaks so well, and speaks to people of different ages, to the extent where I find myself, my kid's obsessed with this guy and this channel, and I get it. It's fun. It's watching somebody rip open packs, and you get excited as they get excited as they pull something good. And this guy really speaks a really good message, and it's to the extent where I'll walk into the room and I get sucked in, just simply because I'm curious to see what my son's watching, but at the same time, I'm really excited to be part of this community, and it seems to be a very positive community. It's funny because in high school, I sort of had to hide that I was a card gamer or that I liked card gaming because it wasn't socially acceptable within the circle that I was in, which was sports related. Being a football player, one of the leaders on the football team, it really wasn't socially acceptable for me to be a card gamer. And as a kid, I didn't have the strength or the ability to stand up to some of those people and just say, yeah, you're dumb. This is fun. It's enjoyable. I blow off, and now they're overweight and balding, and I'm in halfway decent shape playing Pokemon, and I'm very proud of it, and I love it, and I think it's amazing, and I am also a Haze boy and everything else that I have admitted to over the past episodes. So yeah, there you go. I'm a closet comic book geek and a card gamer all at the same time.
That was really nice, Phil. Good job. Joel, what are you going to bring us all down on?
All right, so everyone...
More Traeger?
No. While the Traeger thing is, fortunately, Amex let me dispute the charge, and I don't have to pay for it just yet. Got myself an Oklahoma Joe's for half the price, so I'm ready to fire that up on Sunday.
Yeah, man.
So that's good news. Everyone named Saoirse, you gotta go. I don't know where you came from. I don't know why everyone is named this now. But even though I finally learned how to pronounce it, because it's Saoi, 3 fucking vowels in a row. Saoirse. And I know there's one famous person named that, and I see it all the time, so I'm like, well, I don't even know what I'm looking at right now. It feels like I picked the wrong Scrabble tiles when I read it. But, yeah, like, obviously, we're not going to, like, kill you, but we got to do something with the name. We got to figure this out, because even though I know how to pronounce it now, I still don't like looking at it. I still don't like reading it. It's a problem. It's a visual nightmare, and we got to figure this out.
I don't know if I'm familiar with this name.
I mean,
Am I going down a rabbit hole?
I've never heard of it, but I mean, that's okay.
I'll text it to you guys. You may recognize it.
Okay. Phil, you want to plug anything?
Yeah, you can follow me at ppalmisano77 on Instagram, Dos Birigos on Twitter when I'm actually on there. I do have a LinkedIn page.
Joel?
I am Florida DUH Brewer on Instagram and Twitter. And breaking news, I have a new Instagram account. I haven't posted anything yet, but it's
Ooh.
at Egg Symmetry, right? EGGSYMMETRY, and it will document my OCD with putting the right amount of eggs back in the carton, back in the fridge. Basically spaced out evenly with equal weight distribution. It's one of those OCD things that I have, and I got into a little bit of a thing with people on Twitter the other day about it, so I figured, fuck it, I'll take a picture every time I put a carton of 18 eggs or less back, because I buy the 18 pack, and you know, it's a real nightmare when I've got an odd number that's not divisible by 3, so yeah, I'm crazy, and that's my new thing. I haven't posted anything, but I probably will by the time you hear this.
Okay. I'm here for you, Joel, in case you need anyone to talk to. You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram and Twitter, and you can follow the show on Twitter at United We Drink. The Instagram account is at United We Drink Pod. Joel tends to forget about the pod part of that. Some asshole.
I remembered today.
Got at United We Drink. And you can also subscribe to the show on any of the major podcast apps. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts is, I guess, changing things up right now. Spotify, Stitcher, soon to be Amazon podcasts. I have already signed us up for that, so whenever that officially launches, we will be available on that. You can buy a shirt, button, sticker, tote, or anything of that matter, United We Drink related, on our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store. I'm going to start working on some new designs here soon, and a couple ideas I have I think would be really cool. But check that out. In the meantime, I'm personally a fan of our metal looking t-shirt. I love it. And other than that, we will be back in a couple weeks. I will be a married man. I'll actually be a married man by the time this episode comes out, but regardless of the fact, I will be married recording on the next episode. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. Cheers.
Hail Satan.
Caution, the bus is turning.